you can write down the answers that we write down as a group. Number 1, what does Quiggin say is the objective of terrorism?
Political issues where groups with little influence or who are dissatisfied with aspects of the government use violence as a way of effective change.
And the last bit is the bit that I like the most, affecting change, because the objective is a why. Why do they do it? To affect change. He is suggesting this. There are lots of different theories about terrorism. If you ask psychologists, they say there's mentally something wrong with the way the brain is developed. But we're not psychologists. From a political argument as political students, effecting change within a political system. What do terrorists lack? What is it that's missing? Yes. Influence, power, control. It's just like a bully. What we know about bullying is the bully doesn't particularly care about that individual. You could replace their victim with 50 other victims. They wouldn't care what the victim looks like. The bully's action isn't about the victim, it's about the power they get from the bullying. It's about control. And usually bullies are victims of bullying in their homes. So in this case, terrorists lack control, political control. Why can't it be eradicated?
As long as oppression or the perception of oppression remains, there will always be terrorism.
Well said. Almost like Quiggin said it himself.
Yeah.
Yes. It's second last paragraph on the first page. Quiggin is suggesting that oppression is inevitable. We've always had oppression, we'll always have it. As long oppression is the short answer.
It says eradicate cannot be eradicated.
So it can't be eradicated because it's caused by oppression, people who are oppressed, lacking power. Therefore, it's always going to exist. How does he suggest states should tackle terrorism?
Organisation. Isn't that saying what it can't? Greater specialisation and then concentrated focus on the means of investigating.
Before he gets to that, he says, first of all, like Nikita said, what they shouldn't do. What shouldn't they do? Yeah. He's saying physical and military power won't cut it. It's not going to work. And in fact, he's pretty accurate. It's never worked. It hasn't worked in Iraq, it didn't work in Vietnam, hasn't worked in Afghanistan. Physical power alone won't be enough. What do states need to put in place? What do they need? Yeah, he alludes to investigating. But there's something else on the first page, towards the bottom. How do we confront terrorism? Political will. Now, he doesn't actually say what that is, which is frustrating. But what I think he means is, to some extent, you need to engage with terrorists. You need to determine what it is that they want and engage with them politically. So in Iraq, instead of shooting every Sunni and Shia insurgent or locking them up and torturing them, have meetings with them. Find out what their concerns are. They do try. Well, it is a dual response. We don't see much of that response, but the US is smart enough. They do that. But likewise, with JI, what are their concerns? Is there some way we can fold their concerns into the current political debate? So, political will. Laura.
It's kind of hard to meet with them because say if I was like, hey, do you want to come and
Let's go get coffee.
talk and with the, if I was have political power, they're just going to think I'm going to be like, right, you're arrested, I'm going to torture you for all the information.
I actually think the reverse is true, that they would be very willing to talk, that they'll have spoken. They want power. This is an avenue to power. The reverse is true. Governments can't be seen to be negotiating with terrorists. So governments don't do it or are hesitant to do it because they're giving in to terrorists, people threatening us, and we don't like that. The appearance of that is that we're losing, they're winning. It's us versus them. All right, I'm going to keep going. Some examples, and the one that's going to be the best for us is JI's attacks. Bali bombings, 02, Marriott Hotel, Australian Embassy. I asked the question then, why did JI attack these sites?
To get rid of
Because
Western.
and
Yes.
the Westerners were occupying those places at that time.
Yeah, so who has political power?
Yes.
Yeah, so these are all symbols of Western or Australian political power. Because we go there in such large numbers, because we spend so much money there, we actually have a fair bit of political power through money, through economic power. JI has a problem with that level of political power. They want the West out of Indonesia. They don't want Australian tourists there. They don't want Western hotel chains like the Marriott. So this is an example of JI conducting terrorist attacks with a political objective in mind. Consider for a second how they might otherwise gain power. So they might gain power through having a state, through a parliament, through their own sovereignty, or through their own laws. But if the government isn't willing to give them power through these avenues, then terrorist groups are going to try and take it. And we see examples of that. So occasions where the state is not willing to give these groups power. The state's not going to give Jemaah Islamiyah power. When Indonesia was formed, it was a secular state, a non-religious state. Religion isn't allowed to be associated with the state, with the government. JI has a problem with that. In West Papua, the government isn't about to give West Papuans independence. It would be a disaster to lose another region after losing East Timor. So it's not going to give them any political control. Even to the extent that raising the West Papuan flag is a criminal offence and leads to prison terms. You're not allowed to raise a West Papuan flag because that's a sign of political power. Same with the Sunni and Shia and Al-Qaeda in Iraq and the Middle East. Because the state is not willing to give them political power, they're responding by trying to take political power. So the lack of political power is the cause. And consider the difference between terrorism, which exists to challenge power or to accumulate more power. So these are the non-state terrorist groups are challenging existing power and trying to accumulate their own power. So JI challenging power in Indonesia. The Sunni and Shia trying to win political power in different regions of Iraq. There's a difference between terrorism for those reasons, but also terrorism to protect power or maintain power.
That's definitely.
And that's our link to state terrorism, exactly. Because we have to be able to talk about state terrorism. States will use terrorism to protect their own power, to maintain their current levels of power when it's challenged. So on the PowerPoint. I'm not going to talk about this. This is just an example specific to Indonesia. There's a quote there from the West Papuans. And the question, why would Indonesia use terrorism? It's very clear. Their political power in West Papua is threatened. It's directly threatened. The West Papuans said, we want our own state. So their political power is threatened. Indonesia responds with terrorism. Or arguably responds with terrorism. Okay, a couple of questions, we're not going to do them. The second one is... Yes, I'm moving quick. The second one is self-defense. So, because this, in the state design, it says causes of terrorism, we need to be able to talk about two. One is political power. The second one we can use is self-defense. And really, this is the just war theory argument. That someone can do whatever they want so long as there are just reasons, justifiable reasons. So global actors can say they are defending themselves against other threats. JI, defending themselves against threats from the West. The Sunni and Shia, defending themselves against threats from America. Indonesia, defending themselves against threats from West Papua. and on and on and on. Israel defending themselves against Palestine. America defending themselves against the Taliban. Self-defense. It's a justification that's been used forever to justify any action. I was just defending myself. And JI is one example. And this is a quote from their spokesman. Our holy war will continue until the liberation of the land of Muslims. So they're defending Muslims against those who are occupying their lands. We need to liberate Muslims, free them. Why? Because they're oppressed by Westerners. They're oppressed by their occupiers. So it's their justification, certainly not mine, but their argument is one of self-defense. And it's the argument that kind of is the easiest to use to justify terrorism as well. Because once you start using a rhetoric of self-defense, you can start saying, well, you might recognise that it's illegal, but somehow justifiable. I don't want to conduct violence against civilians, but I have to, in self-defense. You know, I don't want to take out the town of Fallujah, but there are terrorists in Fallujah, they're going to kill our soldiers, so I have to wipe out the town. It's regrettable, but maybe it's justifiable. And this third prompt, what if terrorism might lead to future peace? So what if one act of terrorism, wiping out Fallujah, might take out all of the key terrorist leaders in Iraq? Therefore, we can now have peace in Iraq. We did have to kill a couple of thousand Iraqi civilians, but we took out all of the leaders, and now we can have peace. Does that now mean terrorism is justifiable? And the prompt at the bottom there is pointing you back to just war theory. You can use it here as well. There is no just terrorism theory that I've found, but the same line of logic applies. So there are some things which are regrettable: war, terrorism, violence. However, is there some sort of just cause for us to do these things? You know, my state doesn't want to be violent, but we've got cause, we're under attack. We need to be violent. The US dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They didn't want to do that, but they were under attack, they needed to end the war, it brought about peace. So that act of terrorism led to peace.
Just a bit wide, because it's a question. How is this in the answer?
Well, many of them are rhetorical, or they relate to, they're getting you to think about the argument of self-defense.
Are we going to the question saying, how does terrorism defend human?
No. The only questions you'll get are, what is one cause of state or non-state terrorism? Or compare two causes of state or non-state terrorism.
And then we're saying terrorists think that, although it's redundant,
Yeah.
there is
And
no cause. You
you can say, this will sound terrible, you can say what you like so long as you can explain it and provide evidence. There are so many right answers in this kind of subject that I can't give you right answers to every question. It's how well you can make the argument that one thing is so. So how is it that self-defense can be used as an argument, as a cause of terrorism? Here's another one of those questions. So what is JI defending itself and other Muslims from in this image? But what's the threat from Westerners? How can...
They influence, like, their religious threat, and like what they believe, like the Quran says.
Yeah. This is a Western hotel. There's probably alcohol in the hotel, in every room. Women are allowed to go to this hotel. They're allowed certain rights in this hotel. So perhaps JI don't like that. They might not believe, or many branches of Islam don't believe that people should be able to drink alcohol. Some fundamentalists don't believe that women should have many rights. So perhaps they see this hotel as a threat that needs to be defended against. So this hotel is a symbol of West taking over, influencing, threatening Islam, Indonesia, religion.
So would we say, provide like a sort of general what, like JI finds threatening, and then give that as our example?
You'd start with
We have to make a sentence like they can't do it.
You'd start with the broad discussion, how global actors use self-defence as a justification because it causes conflict, and then your example can be JI defending itself against Western influence, or state terrorism, Indonesia using terrorism to defend itself against West Papuans. And both of them will become clearer when we do our two terrorist actors, because we have to know two.
How many people are in that song?
I don't remember.
Like roughly?
Maybe 100? Maybe less? Yeah, somewhere around there.
So what you're saying, Indonesia defending itself against
And the same question can be asked here. You've got images of US troops next to mosques in Iraq. Holy places, places of worship. How would a Sunni or Shia insurgent use the self-defense argument to explain the cause of their terrorist acts?
Like visual analysis on our exam?
You can, but because almost the whole exam is choice, because you can choose what units you've done, the only unit that everyone does the same is global actors.
So like the UN one we had.
And literally the only thing that is the same for every student will be UN, IMF, WTO and ICC. That's the only common element across every group, every student. So the only diagram might be a picture of the UN. It might be, I don't know, a whole group of people holding hands and a symbol of the UN in the background, and it says, define global governance or something very vague. But I can't see them really using one very well. There might be a picture of a plane with the UN symbol on the side dropping bombs, or UN peacekeepers. But they're the only images they can use. They can't use this because groups wouldn't have done terrorism. They will have done the other crises, economic crisis. Yeah. But back to the image. Okay. It's not hard for an insurgent to make the argument that they're defending their religion against the occupiers, who are bringing violence to their places of worship. I'm not making an argument, I'm saying it wouldn't be difficult to use self-defence as an argument. Alright, let's watch a brief. So, here's an example of self-defence.
An Australian-funded counter-terrorism unit in West Papua is facing new accusations of abusing its power in the troubled Indonesian province. The notorious squad, known as Detachment 88, has launched a fresh crackdown on independence activists in the wake of an expose by this program in August. 8 men have been detained and accused of bomb-making. Separatist leaders claim the explosives were planted and they've been framed to justify the squad's activities. Hayden Cooper has this report.
Jayapura, West Papua is a city marred by violence and tension, where independence leaders have been arrested, beaten, killed, and where police have been confronted by unruly and angry demonstrations. When 730 travelled to the province in August, the crackdown on the independence movement was already severe, resulting in several deaths, including of this man, independence leader Marco Tabuni, shot in this street, witnesses say, by the Australian-trained and funded police unit, Detachment 88.
Clearly, it was them who killed him because we saw them shoot him and take him to their hospital.
Since then, the crackdown has worsened. Victor Yamo succeeded Tabuni as leader of the West Papua National Committee, or KNPB. This week, he sent this video to 7:30.
We are the non-violent activists in West Papua. We will fight for our right of freedom according to the peaceful means in West Papua. We demand our right of self-determination through referendum to be held in West Papua by UN peacefully and democratically.
But the Indonesian authorities don't believe his claim of non-violence, and they're pursuing KNPB like never before. In June, Indonesian soldiers went on a rampage in the highlands town and KNPB stronghold of Wamena. And now, in a new development, police have raided the homes and offices of KNPB members in the area. Last weekend, 8 were arrested, and witnesses say once again, Detachment 88 was involved.
I think the reference there, and the members in one, they saw the dancers act with one car and another car by police.
It ends obviously rather abruptly, but can someone make the case for the Indonesian government for me, using self-defense? So make the connection between state, self-defense, getting involved in West Papua, violence.
State self-defense being threatened,
Not just military force, terrorism, because this unit is terrorism. Yeah. So the state feels threatened, its sovereignty is threatened, peace is threatened. So we have to go in. It's regrettable, but we might need to kill some independence leaders. We might need to torture them, lock them up. It'll make a statement so that the rest of them will cut it out. So it's against civilians. It's very much political. Involves violence. There's another way. This footage is a little bit more confronting, but it shows a similar thing. Yeah, we get that.
3.2 billion comments are posted online.
This is a protest taking place and the crackdown by Indonesian troops. And it starts off pretty peacefully. And it's like, in West Papua. They're shooting up in the air for now. Later in the video they start. It's the police shooting. seen some protests in the city and they look nothing like this.
Are they protesting?
It was a group of West Papuans walking down the street in protest. They've been surrounded by the police, and now the police are just hitting them and pushing them around. And then some of them are jumping the fence and running through the field, and the guys on the top of that Humvee are taking shots at them.
Why?
Because they might be terrorists. They're threatening peace. Sovereignty.
But they're not even protesting, they're just walking.
Yeah, so that's why I would suggest this is an example of state terrorism. The state would suggest they're just defending themselves against threats. But you can say the cause of the terrorism is self-defence. What's making these soldiers do what they do? Well, they think the state is under threat in some way. Pretty confronting footage. I'm aware that the bell goes in a few minutes. This PowerPoint is on my classes, and these are the 3 questions that I was hoping we'd get to, but we've run out of time. Please answer them. They relate to all the content in the PowerPoint. Is the bell going yet? No. 2 minutes early. Are you going to come back, will you? Okay. 3 questions. So we end up with 2 causes. One, the desire for more political power. That would force somebody to perform a terrorist act. Another one is self-defence. If I feel threatened, I might act out against civilians. These Indonesian troops felt threatened by West Papuans. Whatever it is about West Papuans, it threatens them. It threatens the state or it threatens individual troops. So they act out in some way. They hit them, they fight, they lock them up, they torture them, or they kill them. So something about West Papuans is a threat. If something's a threat, you're acting against it. It's self-defence. I'm defending myself against this threat.